Of all the creatures known to reside in the oceans of the world, none of them are as infamous as the great white shark. These sharks are the largest predatory fish on Earth, with a diet consisting of large marine vertebrates such as fish, whales, and primarily seals. These sharks inhabit waters all around the globe, but have recently begun to pop up on the coast of Cape Cod.
20 years ago, I couldn't find a white shark in Massachusetts.
And then over the last 15 years, 10 years really, there's been a huge increase in the number of sightings of sharks.
And so for the very first time, we have predictable access to white sharks here in the western North Atlantic.
How will these majestic beasts impact our waters and ecosystem of the Massachusetts coasts? And what caused them to gather around Cape Cod in the first place? Is this a result of climate change, or purely due to glacial conservation? This is Great White Impact.
So I'm Connor. I'm a graduate student in the Lauder Lab here at Harvard. So I study how sharks swim in the wild for the most part. And I've been doing that for the last 12 years of my life. So when I was 22 maybe, I started tagging sharks in Florida, working at Mote Marine Lab. And since then I've been basically thinking about how sharks swim in the real world and how they behave. And I mainly do that through putting little accelerometer Fitbit style tags on them.
I've always had a fascination with sharks ever since I was a young guy. And I decided at a young age, inspired by movies like Jaws, that it would be really cool to become a marine scientist and to focus on sharks. I've been focused on natural history, physiology, and ecology of sharks as it relates to sustainability. So most of my research the last really 37 years has been trying to generate information that allows us to manage these sharks and shark species at sustainable levels.
In the town of Chatham, Massachusetts, white sharks have become the primary focus of locals and visitors during the summer months of the year. Located on the southeast tip of Cape Cod, these waters have become a hotspot for these apex predators due to the increasing numbers of North Atlantic gray seals along the coast. While many people enjoy the sharks and the attention it brings to Chatham, some are left concerned about their safety when visiting local beaches. Still, Cape Cod, time and time again, proves to be a very popular summer destination, with or without the threat of sharks lurking in the waters.
Well, obviously where there's seals, there are white sharks, so that's why I got my binoculars. I'm out here just glassing the bay here a little bit. Haven't seen any seals yet, but some of the seals hang on all winter long because the water's a little bit warmer and they'll just feed on the shellfish. But in another month or so, by the end of April, beginning of May, the seals will start coming up from down south, and right behind them is the sharks.
I've been going to the Cape since I was a kid, and I remember you always hear about sharks at the Cape, but you never really see them. And then over the last 15 years, 10 years really, there's been a huge increase in the number of sightings of sharks, and a bunch of research has been done by the state of Massachusetts and the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy trying to figure out, is there really an increase happening? How many sharks are using the area? And over the past 10 years, they've been IDing sharks, tagging sharks, studying them, and now they think there's maybe around 800 sharks potentially that come and use Cape Cod, and in any one month there might be over 500, which is pretty wild.
White sharks swim in waters all over the globe. They famously inhabit waters off the coast of South Africa, Australia, Guadeloupe, and the United States, including both the Pacific and Atlantic coasts. White sharks begin to appear in New England waters around June, moving between Cape Cod and the Gulf of Maine, where food is plentiful and the waters are warm. The population peaks in between the months of August through October before they migrate back down to the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, as well as the Gulf of Mexico for the winter months, where they will have access to warmer waters.
These sharks can, they use the Cape, but they use all the way up into Canada, into Nova Scotia. White sharks are also warm-blooded, and basically they're endothermic, so they can tolerate actually a wider range of temperatures.
During the 1960s, the North Atlantic grey seal population was facing decimation due to the abundance of hunting that took place. Grey seals were hunted for their skin to make fur clothing, and blubber to create sea oil. Today, hunting grey seals is strictly prohibited in New England, and the population has bounced back significantly.
So the increase in the seal population is definitely probably the biggest factor driving why white sharks are on the Cape. There's, like 100,000 seals, I believe now, that use Monomoy Island. And so there's a huge food resource, which is due to like all these really good protective measures like the Marine Mammal Protection Act.
In 1972, we passed the Marine Mammal Protection Act, which is a very, very strict and conservation-based legislation that allowed for the restoration of some marine mammal populations. So we've seen a response of seal populations to those levels of protection. And so what was once populations that were driven to the brink of extinction are now coming back. And because white sharks feed on seals, and that's been demonstrated throughout the world, bringing back those seals has now drawn white sharks close to shore off our coastline here in predictable numbers.
The Atlantic White Shark Conservancy is dedicated to the conservation of white sharks in the Atlantic Ocean and the promotion of maintaining a healthy and balanced marine ecosystem. The AWSC has shark centers located in Chatham and Provincetown, offering an in-depth look at white sharks.
So the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy has greatly facilitated understanding research of white sharks, as well as, creating public awareness of these animals and how, this is the environment they live in, and this is the ocean's a shared resource for both them and for us. And so I think there are these risks that you go into the ocean, you're going into these like other animals' natural environment, and that risk is basically negligible on an individual basis. And so you're trying to find this way how we can basically best create these community perspectives of managing these relationships.
We look at what's happening off Cape Cod and actually throughout New England and Canada as the restoration of a healthy ecosystem in terms of white sharks and seals and what's happening between white sharks and seals. Basically, we like to think of it as it's the job of the white shark to eat seals. That's what they do. That's their natural biology. That's how they feed. And so we think we've restored that predator-prey relationship here in New England. There are some repercussions. Most of those are associated with public safety. With the reestablishment of white sharks off the Outer Cape in particular, we have seen an increase in the number of negative interactions between sharks and people, culminating in the death of a boogie boarder in 2018. They don't happen frequently, but they do happen, and that's something we're trying to mitigate for. So that's one of the potential negative repercussions.
On March 6, 2024, National Geographic obtained footage of an orca whale killing a white shark for possibly the first time ever on camera. Will this altercation redefine who is viewed as the biggest and baddest predator in the sea?
It's been really well established in scientific literature and elsewhere that orcas will eat white sharks. It's happened quite a while ago. It started happening off the California coastline. And it's really changed the dynamics of white shark movements and residency off South Africa over the course of the last decade. Here in the western North Atlantic, it's been a real struggle to actually find killer whales. We know they're distributed historically from the Arctic Circle to the Caribbean. But, with seals, which orcas eat, and with increases in white sharks, which some orcas have been known to prey upon, it's something worth watching.
As global warming continues to melt the ice caps at an alarming rate, the Atlantic Ocean continues to experience changes in the ocean's temperatures. These circumstances have contributed to the white sharks gathering further north each year, swimming up the coast of North America during the summer months in search of prey.
And as the climate changes, there's a lot of questions about how food availability actually drives both the seals as well as the white sharks. And I think it's a real question, especially because the Gulf of Maine, which is just north of Cape Cod, is actually one of the fastest warming water bodies in the world. And so there's a lot of really important questions of how this actually might change the dynamics in these systems and how that might be contributing to maybe an increase in the number of sharks.
We're mandated by law to establish sustainable populations. What remains to be seen, of course, is the impacts of climate change on this dynamic over the course of the next 10 to 50 years. And so it's tough for us to predict what that's going to bring.
It is difficult to predict the future of the North Atlantic marine ecosystem. However, it's clear that white sharks play an important role in keeping a healthy balance of predator and prey.
Over the next 10 years, I think it's actually pretty exciting, or 50 years, I think it'll be really exciting to see how this aggregation site develops and how humans and animals kind of learn to coexist, right, in this shared resource. It's like a place that I love to go to every summer. And clearly the sharks love to go there every summer too, to eat seals. I'm excited to see how we develop this relationship and how we begin to really appreciate the sharks. Like, I think the community is really starting to embrace it, and I think I'm really excited for that aspect of it.
Today, you can visit museums all around Massachusetts to learn more about these elusive creatures and how they impact our ocean's ecosystem. Whether you visit Cape Cod in the summer or are swimming off the coast of Florida in the winter, great white sharks will always maintain their reputation as the largest and scariest predatory fish swimming in our planet's oceans.